No job is more important than keeping you safe. At Methuen Construction, safety is not just a slogan, but a part of our culture. Our number one priority is protecting our teammates, clients, and subcontractors to make sure no one is ever put in a position to be injured on our sites. Part of achieving this mission includes making sure that you and everyone around you work safe. That's why all workers and teammates must attend Methuen's safety orientation prior to working on our job sites and actively participate in safety while on site. Methuen makes safety a priority by requiring all crews and subcontractors to complete a daily activity plan. The plan is completed by each foreman and outlines the daily tasks, specific hazards, and the controls to abate the hazards. It is a requirement that the daily activity plan is reviewed with all teammates and that any changes made to the plan are documented throughout the shift. This meeting will require team members to provide input to the daily tasks and to voice concerns regarding safety on the job site. In addition to the daily activity plan, all job sites and subcontractors must complete weekly toolbox talks. All Methuen job sites will have a posted muster point. In the event of an emergency, all teammates, subcontractors, and vendors are required to check in at the muster point to be accounted for. The foreman of each crew should use the sign-in from the daily activity plan to account for everyone in their crew. Emergency phone numbers are posted in the job site trailers along with our grab-and-go packet. The grab-and-go packet will have directions to the nearest clinic and hospital. Evacuations will be initiated with 3 blasts of an air horn. If you hear 3 blasts, immediately stop what you are doing and safely walk to the muster point. Throughout Methuen Construction, we hold ourselves and others accountable to the highest level of professional, ethical, and responsible conduct. Fighting and horseplay will be cause for immediate removal from the job site. Harassment of any kind will not be tolerated, and all claims will be investigated. Safety data sheets are provided for the chemicals found on the job site. The SDS binders can be found in the Methuen office trailer. It is the responsibility of each subcontractor to provide Methuen with safety data sheets for the chemicals they are bringing on site. In the event a chemical is put in a secondary container, the container must be labeled properly, including the name of the chemical, the appropriate pictograms, signal word, and hazard statements. It is a requirement to bring the appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, that may be necessary for the type of work you will be performing. Methuen requires ANSI-approved safety glasses, task-appropriate gloves, high-visibility shirts or vests, hard hats, and steel or composite-toed boots. Safety glasses and a face shield are required when grinding, using a demo saw, chipping concrete, and performing any other task that creates flying objects. Your employer is responsible for providing you with the proper PPE. It is vital that it is inspected daily for any defects and replaced when necessary. All rigging must be inspected prior to use. Inspect for wear and tear, signs of damage, corrosion, bird caging, and cuts. The manufacturer's tag must also be present and legible. Defective rigging shall not be used and must be taken out of service immediately. All teammates involved in a pick must know the weight of the material, pick points, and capacity of the rigging being used. When finished for the day, rigging must be properly stored, out of the weather, and protected from damage. At Methuen Construction, 100% fall protection is required when working 6 feet above the lower level. This includes erecting and dismantling scaffolding, working in any mobile elevated work platform or MUP, and when involved in steel erection. A proper anchor point that can withstand 5,000 pounds of force must be used and identified in your daily activity plan. When using retractables or yo-yos, it is important to stay within 5 feet of the anchor point to prevent a swing fall hazard. 6-foot lanyards shall not be used unless you're at least 18 feet above a lower level. While working in MUPs, the manufacturer's tie-off points must be used, along with a body harness and a retractable or 4-foot lanyard. If feasible, a guardrail shall be erected to eliminate a fall hazard. There are many engineered devices that can be used to erect guardrail. If using wire rope, make sure it doesn't deflect more than 3 inches and is flagged every 6 feet. A tow board shall be installed if others will be working below. A trained and competent worker is the only one permitted to inspect, design, or alter scaffolding. Scaffolding must be tagged and inspected prior to each shift. Scaffolds are required to have handrail installed. When this is not possible, 100% tie-off is required. Rolling scaffolds must have the wheels locked into place prior to use. Scaffolding erected at a base to height ratio greater than 4:1 must be tied back and secured to the structure, or outriggers must be utilized where applicable. Be sure to use ladders properly and that you are using the right ladder for the job that you are performing. Always inspect your ladder prior to use. Look for broken, damaged, or altered ladders and remove them from service and the site immediately. Aluminum ladders are also not permitted. When working off a ladder next to or against a guardrail, make sure to tie off and secure the ladder. When working off a ladder 6 feet or more above a lower level, fall protection is required. This includes both step ladders and conventional ladders. Extension ladders shall be erected at a 4:1 ratio, that is 4 feet vertically to 1 foot horizontally. When using a step ladder, it must be fully opened and not used as an extension ladder, unless it has been designed for this purpose. Never work from the top of the ladder. It is important to have the proper ladder to safely reach the work area. When ladders are not in use, they must be laid down or secured properly to prevent them from falling over. All subcontractors and teammates are required to clean up after themselves. Housekeeping is not only a tripping hazard, but can also be a fire hazard. Holes are also a hazard. Debris knocked in small holes could easily present a hazard below. All holes must be properly covered, labeled, and secured. Aisles and walkways must be kept clear of debris and material. All emergency facilities must also have unobstructed access. This includes means of egress, first aid kits, fire extinguishers, electrical panels, and eye wash stations. When working from a MEWP, 100% fall protection must be maintained at all times. At no time should you stand on the toe board, mid-rail, or top rail while working out of a MEWP. The door or chain across the access point must be secured prior to the unit being used. While working out of a MEWP, ensure the platform of the lift is kept free of debris and trash. Like all other equipment on a Methuen job site, MEWPs must be inspected prior to each shift and documented. All equipment that poses a potential for accidental startup while performing maintenance or installation shall be locked and tagged out prior to starting the task. After the source is locked out, you must verify that it is de-energized by trying to start the piece of equipment. All workers involved must have their own lock on the energy source or the satellite box. At no time are you permitted to remove someone else's lockout device. Everyone is responsible for the removal of his or her lock. Ground fault circuit interrupters shall always be used. All electrical tools and cords shall be inspected on a daily basis and prior to use. Electrical cords must be 12 gauge minimum and elevated whenever possible to eliminate the potential for damage and the potential for slips, trips, and falls. Do not run over cords with equipment. If they cannot be elevated, they must be protected. Methuen requires that the daily excavation checklist is completed prior to anyone entering an excavation. Basic OSHA requirements include sloping or benching soil or using other protective measures when an excavation is 5 feet or deeper to prevent cave-ins. Be sure to provide access every 25 feet when depth is 4 feet and greater, and keep spoil piles 2 feet from the edge. Excavations must be barricaded when not being worked on. This prevents potential fall hazards. Fire extinguishers are located throughout each job site. During hot work activities, each worker must have a fire extinguisher nearby, fire blankets and protective shields as required, and in some circumstances, a fire watch and hot work permit may be required. Prior to performing any hot work, ensure all combustibles are removed from the immediate area. All fire extinguishers will be inspected monthly by a competent person and annually by a third party. On most of our job sites, you will encounter heavy equipment. Don't be in a hurry when working around heavy equipment. Be sure to listen for backup alarms, look for blind spots and pinch points, and make eye contact with the operator. You must be trained and sometimes licensed on the equipment you operate. In certain circumstances, spotters will be required. It is important that you properly inspect equipment and document the inspections before use. Silica is a basic component of sand, concrete, brick, asphalt, granite, and some blasting grit. You may be exposed to silica hazards when you're around activities like abrasive blasting, jackhammering, mixing grout, chipping concrete, and even housekeeping activities like sweeping. It is important that you assess the work and identify possible exposures before the activity begins. For task-specific engineering and work practice control methods, OSHA's Table 1 shall be referenced. This table identifies tasks that may expose you to silica and the required engineering controls, which typically includes a shrouded tool or tools that provide a constant flow of water. When on a job site, you may need to enter a confined space to perform a task. At Methuen, we require a permit to be completed by a competent person prior to entry. All confined spaces must be labeled, open hatches must be protected, and sometimes ventilation may be needed. The air quality of all confined spaces must be checked prior to entry. It is also Methuen's policy that a floor gas monitor is always in the space. All entrants and attendants must be trained on confined space entry. Although not something we like to utilize, our accountability policy applies to all who work on our project sites. This policy indicates the disciplinary actions taken if any safety violations are observed or reported. We have QR codes posted in all project offices that allow everyone to have access to the policy. If you are ever unsure on how to perform a task safely, please stop and ask questions before performing the task. We care about every teammate on our job sites, and we want your involvement on our projects to be a safe one. In commitment to safety, you have an obligation to report any near miss, incident, or hazard to Methuen's on-site management team that puts you or others at risk. At Methuen Construction, no job is more important than your safety. We want you to return home to your families at the end of each day.